All right, let's finish up with what we started yesterday. So yesterday we did radical equations, right? So equal signs. But now we're going to do an inequality. This will be a lot faster because it's only one example. All right. Let's see what I want to do here. Okay, that's just the checking part. Is it? Hold on, let me see. Must be less than. Oh, okay, I see what I did. All right, here we go. So here's the problem. This is example 5. Oops, forgot to change that. So this is example 5 in the book, and it says to solve, but this one is an inequality, not an equality. So it's the square root of 4x plus 5 is less than or equal to 10. All right. So solving for x right here shouldn't be that difficult. It's pretty basic, okay, if you understood what we did yesterday. So what's the first thing we're going to do? Get rid of what here? Gavin, up here. What are we going to get rid of here? Square root. How do we get rid of a square root? We square it. So we square both sides. Now, look what we just did. We squared both sides, so you got to make sure you check and all that kind of stuff. But actually on this one, we're not going to check. All right, it'll work, but you should. I'm just telling you that it does work, okay, just to save you the time. So we get rid of the square root. What do we get? 4x plus 5 is less than or equal to 100. And then we subtract 5 from both sides. So 4x is less than or equal to 95. Divide both sides by 4. So x is less than or equal to 95. Or sorry, get ahead of myself. 95 divided by 4. You could keep it like that, but that's not a number that I think of on the number line, is it? So let's change it to either a mixed number or a decimal, and we are going to change it to a decimal. And I'll do the work for you. That is 23.75. All right. So that was pretty straightforward. Nothing fancy there. Would you agree? Yeah. But we got to do something else because we're going to do that number line. Oops. Let's make it look a little nicer than that. Okay. We're going to do a number line. And we got to put this stuff on the number line. So over here is going to be a 23.75. But there's something else. This is under a square root. Remember, I got to find out what x can equal and what x can't equal. So this is what x could be, right? All the numbers that are less than or equal to 23.75. But if we took that original problem, 4x plus square root of 4x plus 5 is less than or equal to 10. What must be true about the stuff under a square root? If you're going to put it on a number line, what has to be true? There's a restriction, okay? We have to look at all our restrictions of what can and what cannot go on the number line, all right? So what's our restriction here? What do we have to do? So the stuff under the square root must be what? Say it again. Positive. It's got to be positive, okay? So 4x plus 5, 4x plus 5 has to be positive. It's got to be, or it could be 0, greater than or equal to 0. Now that's a key step that a lot of people will forget. Stop the nonsense. I don't know what's happening, but stop it. There's this giggling and looking back and forth all the time. Just pay attention to me. So you can't just solve for this. You have to look to see if there's any restrictions. And there's definitely restrictions on this because you may not be able to include every single number to the left of 23.75. You got to find out, are there any restrictions? There are definitely restrictions here because you have a square root. A square root cannot be negative, which means it has to be greater than or equal to 0. So let's find out what our restriction is with x. So subtract 5. Well, I don't need to do that. Subtract 5 from both sides. So 4x greater than or equal to negative 5. Divide by 4. So x has to be what? Greater than or equal to negative 5 over 4. Let's write it so that we can recognize what it looks like on a number line. We'll write it as a decimal. So x is greater than, what's that? 1 1/4, right? Or 1 and, it's negative, 1.25, right? So these aren't my answers just yet. I'm going to put them in a box. A box doesn't mean it's the answer, but those are my key points. Those are my critical points. This one right here is the one that a lot of people forget to do. They look at this they say, oh, that's easy. Square both sides, do the basic Algebra 1 math, and you got that answer. You put it here. You shade everything to the left, but that is not necessarily the correct answer because you have a restriction. You can't include every single number that's less than 23.75 because look, you've added a restriction. You can only pick numbers that are what? That are greater than or equal to negative 1.25. So anything less than 1.25 cannot be used. All right? So if you just put a 23.75 and everything to the left, that would be incorrect because there are numbers that don't work, that will not make this less than or equal to 10. So let's put our critical points in here. So this is negative 1.25. It's a lot easier using decimals when it comes out like this. All right, so let's put them in as decimals. And then another one, you don't have to be like real. Just put 2 points, put the smaller one on the left and the bigger one on the right. All right, so now what do we got? Everything less than 23.75 and everything what? Greater than 1.25. So how do we graph this thing? Put a circle, right? So what kind of a circle at negative 1.25? It's a closed circle because it's or equal to. So it could be equal to negative 1.25, okay? And then what kind of a circle at 23.75? It's also closed and it's everything where? In between. So that's technically not your answer, but that definitely helps us write the answer. That's why I graph it, all right? You could maybe look at this and just figure out what your answer is just by looking at these two answers. But the graph, I think, is very important. I think it really helps. So what's my answer then? X is between, which means we write it like this. So X is between negative 1.25 and positive 23.75. So that is how you should write the answer. Oh, you know what? That does work. Let's just see if it works, okay? Let's just do a check to see if it works, okay? Remember what we did before? We broke those down into these three different areas, all right? So give me an easy number somewhere between negative 1.25 and positive 23.75. What's the easiest number you can think of to plug something back in? 0, yeah, so pick 0. So let X equal 0. Let's do that in a different color. All right, so let X equal 0. Let's just make sure that this does work, okay? So put a 0 in for this to the original one. We're not going to do the square part. That was the original. So what is it? 4 times 0 is 0 plus 5 is 5. That's the square root of 5. Is the square root of 5 less than 10? Yeah, the square root of 5 is like 2 point something. Okay, is that less than or equal to 10? Sure it is. So yes, that's good. Pick a number over here. Pick a number over here to see if that actually does or does not work. Negative 2. Yeah, let's put a negative 2 in this. Okay, so 4 times negative 2 is, so let X equals negative 2. Put a negative 2 in this. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 5. That definitely doesn't work because negative 8 plus 5 is a negative number inside a square root, right? So that's going to be an imaginary number. That's not even on the number line to begin with. So can you put a negative 2 in for this? No. Let's try a number greater than 23.75. Yeah, let's try 25. All right, so let X equal 25. Let's put it in here. 4 times 25 is 100 plus 5 is 105. The square root of 105, is that bigger or smaller than 10? Well, this is the square root of 100, isn't it? So what's the square root of 105? It's 5. It's greater than, so that doesn't work. So we're not using any of this. We're not using any of this. So I can rest assured that these are the only possible answers for X. Okay, so I'm good with this. So I could circle this, and I'm done. Make sense? Yeah, it's no different. I mean, we did this kind of stuff before, right, with this inequality thing. All right, it's really not that much different, except you got these square roots. And but this is the key, to find that when we set this right there, that thing right there is a key that a lot of people forget to do. So you got to remember that when you do these problems, okay? You got what, like 6 problems to do or something like that? Is that what it is? Yep. All right, so you got to remember to make sure that your stuff inside here has got to be greater than or equal to 0. That's going to give me my other point, and then you're good to go. All right, enough of that. Yes. Is there any in there? Oh, I guess they're gone. I got paper towel. That help? Okay. All right, so what did I say we're doing? I think I wrote it down different on my paper. 29 to 34, okay? So 29 to 34, and this is section 47, section 47B. There you go. I don't know. Just flip to section 47 and you'll find the problems at the end. Let me see. Where is it? 47B. 255. Page 255. All right. There it is.